I'll tell you one thing for sure. Seeing a movie like this, or movies like this, make me feel a whole lot better about my living situation.
You felt like a woman inside?
No, nobody feels that way. I wanted to kill myself, and it sort of helped.
Would Tahlul make a pretty girl?
You're fine as you are.
It's not a bad thing. Be free! Fiction is freedom. Fiction is freedom.
And today we have stress positions. Neon trying to be out there and give A24 a run for its money. But I caught the trailer for Stress Positions at my local art house cinema. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't love it. It didn't hit, it didn't resonate. I didn't find it too ultimately interesting for one reason or another. But luckily, the same art house cinema was doing a special premiere for the movie. They were gonna have a Q&A with, I shit you not, the lead actor of the film. And as soon as I heard that, I said, well, for the experience at least, I'd love to go to a Q&A, talk to an actor that stars in the film we're about to go see, and you know what, maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. And I was. Stress Positions is the directorial debut, the first full-length feature film by director Theda Hamill. I know they're trans, I want to make sure I use the correct pronouns here. Well, IMDb says actress, so I'm gonna assume right there, but actress, writer, director. First full-length feature film, also starring role in the film itself, alongside, so the main star of our film, I believe main star, but the same guy who we had the Q&A with at the theater, apparently a Nashville native at heart, so cool there. Somehow I just didn't know the name, but there's quite a prolific list, everything from comedy specials to film and television. But we have John Early, he's the star of this, so he was the one who introduced the film. I had to hear some of his insights on the process. It's a decently sized ensemble, but I guess we have two, arguably three main characters, but I always doubt these. There's no shot.
Harhash.
I'm calling cap. Third main character in this film, not even officially an actor, a model. I mean, you can definitely tell, just saying. What a colorful cast of characters here. Fun fact, this film almost didn't get made by Neon in the way that it was officially. From what John Early was saying, the director was wanting to almost make this like a sleepover film. Just have everybody come over to a house, we'll grab our personal cameras and just kind of make art. I guess Mr. Early knew a guy who knew a guy, or had a connection over at Neon, and I think he pitched it around to different studios, he was saying, but Neon liked it, picked it up, and now here we are. To describe this film, you watch the trailer, I guess you get a vague notion of it, but even as you're watching the movie, I mean, is there a story? Kind of. There's just a bunch of catalysts that set one thing off to another. I feel like it's really one of those stressful slice of life films, and we never really stay around one main character. We have our main characters as they interact with each other and are affected by each other. Third person, omniscient, just watching these things happen. It just feels like a very voyeuristic slice of life film. There's this crummy little shitty brownstone in New York where these people live, borderline rent-free, because the one guy, they got married to the owner of it, but then they broke up, but he's still being allowed to live there, so he's just there unemployed, but somehow they can scrape together money to afford stuff to survive. I don't know, it's very messy and vague, which is the point, I believe. Just a bunch of human beings that are interacting with each other, and some of them are gay or trans or what have you, and I think that John, can I call you John? Mr. Early, can I call you John? Appreciate it. I think John put it best. It was so interesting. Before the movie started, he came out, thanked us all for coming, and was just saying, hey, remember this. These people aren't real. They're all characters being played by actors. That being said, please do laugh at these characters. Laugh at their struggle. You don't have to empathize or fully sympathize. Basically gave like a disclaimer saying these are all very flawed human characters you're about to witness on screen. Don't feel bad for feeling the way that you do and reacting as such. And then boom, off to the races. And I was like, what the hell? What is that supposed to mean? After watching the film, I 100% understand what he means. Positives first, like I said, this is I do consider this to be a pleasant surprise of a film. And I love to find films like this the movie is better than the trailer. So often, movies can match up to the trailer easily enough. Movies can be as bad as the trailer makes it out to be. But one of the pleasant surprises for me is you see a trailer, it didn't entice me too much, but then I watch the movie and I really enjoy it and I have a solid time. Performances are great in that I've used this description before, characters in this movie are painfully human. John was right. These people aren't all inherently good. They're not all inherently bad. They fluctuate on this barometer of just humanity. They flip-flop around, basically. The characters in this movie do things that on occasion can be nice or generous or the benefit of their fellow human beings. At the same time, these characters can be narcissistic or can behave selfishly. They can gaslight, they can steal. I do admire the film for, do I say bravely doing that? I don't know, just realistically showing you these various human beings that sometimes they can be generous, sometimes they can be selfish, sometimes they can be self-serving or manipulative or gaslighting or friendly. Just a messy house full of messy people, and oftentimes that's kind of what people are. So often Hollywood or films in general will classify characters as black, white, good, bad, evil, hero, what have you, but very often characters are layered and varied and complicated, and this film does a very good job of showing you a cast of people that ultimately, maybe some of them lean more towards one side of the spectrum than the other, but some of them are just kind of big old question marks. The direction in the film is very similar to most slice-of-life films we'd see like this. Simple, yet effective. I will say John Early did mention afterwards during the Q&A that the director was a fan of, I think, Soderbergh, the director. There are definitely some scenes that were inspired by that director's work. I do like how, for the most part, it was fairly even keel, straightforward, simple directing, but there were moments where the direction got a little bit artsy, but it worked for the film's betterment and made for a more cerebral experience occasionally. And I think my favorite part about the film, and I love films in general that do this, but especially a film like this, they are definitely not afraid to tackle taboo subjects. Whether it's openly cheating on somebody, falling in or out of love, using each other for sex or for emotional support, or the nitty-gritty of how some human beings act in general or react under pressure. Drugs, alcohol, kleptomania, substance abuse, codependency, etc., etc. I just like it when films are able to bring up these various taboo subjects or subjects that most people would shy away from discussing or even putting in a film like this, so I applaud them for doing so. You could argue a lot of films do that, but it's still a good example. I didn't love the film though. There were some things that I just kind of not too sure about. There's heavy narration used throughout the film. It's not an audiobook or anything like that, but I feel like when it transitions from one character's perspective to another, it's not just one person that narrates and we follow their story and their track throughout the entire film. There's two, if not, I think 3 narrators altogether. I don't think the narration quite worked for me. If it had been more thoroughly used throughout the film, or if it had stuck to one person, or maybe kept it at 2, I'm not sure what it was about the narration that it kind of just took me out of it. They were long, they were like lengthy monologues worth, and when you have that lengthy disconnect of verbal narration combined with visual storytelling and characters on screen, it created this weird divide in my mind. It just didn't quite connect for me. Perhaps on a subsequent viewing I would feel differently, but as it was, it did more to negatively impact my experience than it did to positively impact it. I felt like it was also part of the movie's lack of focus. I'm okay with a movie having more than one primary character or focusing on several different people, but I felt like in a movie that was already sub 2 hours and already was dealing with complex characters and complex emotions, I felt like some of that was lost in overall narrative translation, if that makes any sense. Which actually leads into my next point pretty smoothly. This sentence might be built on a foundation of sand here. I couldn't quite tell whose story it was, and I'm sure that's part of the point. That's why we have different characters doing narration. I just felt like the film lacked focus in that regard. It made it harder for it to hit me. I just felt like at the core of it was somebody's story, and I think I know whose story it is, but the fact that I'm questioning it after the movie's ended, I kind of feel like speaks to my experience overall. And the last bit was, this is part of what turned me off in the trailer, and it does happen a few times in the film. And I'm not saying John Early is not good at physical comedy, because he is. He's very good at physical comedy. But comedy is subjective. Most of the jokes in this film work. It's some very dark humor throughout. However, when it comes to slapstick comedy and like people like, whoa, and
Uncle Terry! Look, a rainbow! Cool!
to each his own. I mean, it worked for the sake of the character in the movie, and I wasn't upsetty spaghetti about it too much, but I just wasn't a huge fan of the slapstick. It's part of what kind of turned me off in the trailer, but it didn't like ruin the movie or anything. Just at the end of the day, I'm actually going to change my review from what I thought I was going to give it. I'm actually going to kind of boost it up a little bit. Similar to the characters within it, Stress Positions is an imperfect film. It was better than I thought it was going to be, but it's a well-done directorial debut slice of life about just messy people living, existing. It's not afraid to show the flaws in people's character and their humanity. Does it have a point? You decide. Does it have a main character? Does it have a main theme or point? Again, you decide. It's kind of up in the air. It lacks focus for me, which is what kind of detracted from my overall experience. You know, slapstick comedy aside, I just wish it had more narrative focus, and I'm not sure if I loved how the narration was applied in the film. But all things considered, for a first film by this director, the cast all did a great job. For the limited budget that was available, I laughed, I pondered the mysteries of life, and it was a good time overall. I would give Stress Positions a solid 4 out of 5. A solid 4 out of 5. Definitely worth a watch. In theaters, sure if you can, but safe to just stream it at home. Thank you guys and gals so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of whatever I make next. Goodbye, travelers.